Oh, hello.
What's this?
Ah.
We commissioned 4 artists to create a piece of work based on forgotten journeys of 4 19th century ships.
No, wait, what?
Yeah. In this episode, we bring the Fame back to life, the ship that played a big part in the later life of Sir Stamford Raffles.
Raffles, my God. He's certainly not the hero.
I think this is one of the worst tragedies that befell Southeast Asia.
Hi, I'm Andre Wee, and I'm a digital illustrator. I'm actually really interested in everything that's around me, and I take particular interest in drawing people and places. But experimentation really is, I think, what defines my work. And I love to create 3D scenes where you can actually step into these environments. It's just really fun and exciting for me to basically figure out new technologies and really push my work to different places. Oh, thank you. So, on the 2nd of February in the year 1824, the chartered ship, the Fame, set sail for England from the English port of Bencoolen in Sumatra, carrying on board Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles and a lifetime's worth of very precious cargo. Your mission is to uncover the journey of the ship and to create a new work of art, not of Sir Stamford Raffles, but of her cargo, which till today remains of great significance to Singapore. Yours respectfully, the Commissioner. Do I know anything about the Fame? No, but I do know Sir Stamford Raffles. His iconic pose and what I learned about him through the textbooks I had in school. But other than that, nothing much, really.
When I think about the Fame, this is how I imagine it to look like.
It must have been a pretty fancy ship. I mean, he's got a pretty loud statue. I'm pretty sure his boat has like tons of stuff. Like, maybe it even has a statue of him on it.
But obviously, I'm no expert. If I'm going to recreate the Fame and its precious cargo, I'm gonna need to find out about, well, everything.
So Julian, I wondered if you could tell me about the Fame.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, this is a really famous story.
Yeah?
He was on the ship because he was going to England. He was leaving the Far East forever. His last posting was Bencoolen in Sumatra, not Singapore, as people popularly believe.
Mm-hmm. I was kind of informed that there was a lot of precious cargo on the ship.
I mean, it was priceless. I mean, everything that he owned, and he owned many things, and many things of great value. And it's all itemized in here.
Julian shows me letters that Raffles wrote in his own hand.
I embarked with my family on the Fame, carrying with me no less than 122 cases of endless research on the histories and cultures of nearly every island within the Malayan archipelago, and in natural history, the cream and flower of all my collections. Thousands of drawings and specimens of plants, minerals, and animals, all collected at great expense and labor during a life of constant and active research.
He was interested in natural history, and he was always a collector of ethnographic materials.
I see.
And then also, very important for Singapore, there was all his records of how Singapore was established and his kind of vision for the city. So that was the priceless cargo.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. But I'm surprised I've not seen or heard of most of these things.
Oh, well, he won't.
Why not?
At the bottom of the ocean.
No, wait, what?
Yeah, the ship sank.
Happened?
The ship
It sank?
Yeah, a day out of Bencoolen, it caught fire, and the whole damn lot went to the bottom.
That's such a pity.
Now, as it happens, there's a visual record of the Fame.
Julian tells me that on the very first night out at sea, Just as Raffles and his wife were getting ready for bed, a massive fire broke out in the lower decks of the ship. Raffles and everyone else on board had to scramble onto 2 small boats with nothing more than the shirts on their backs. Just before the ship exploded into a mass of flames.
It's hard to fathom how Raffles must have felt at that point. You know, it's like your computer crashing and there's no backup on cloud, you know.
Yeah.
But worse than that, also your whole house catching fire at the same time. So everything you own has gone to the bottom. So, you know, that was a huge loss for history. And it's so sad that we've lost his own account of the founding of Singapore.
When I found out that the cargo on the Fame just went up in smoke, a part of me felt really sad because there was just so much information about Singapore in the past, and we've lost that. And I feel sorry for anyone who's lost lots of work like that. I never knew more about Raffles besides just Raffles being Raffles. So to be able to see these different facets of the same character, to me, was really insightful.
So the Fame's cargo was destroyed, but that doesn't mean I can rebuild it. And I think I know just how to bring what Raffles lost back to life, using augmented reality.
So let me just show you a few examples of what I've done in the past. They are flat illustrations printed on paper, but when viewed through a smart device, they are able to play animation loop on top of it. And you can see vehicles and people moving through the city. You can also see the trees moving in the wind. So with this idea, I hope to be able to create a stylized illustration of the Fame, where I am able to show my viewers the different layers of the ship and the precious cargo.
But at this point, I only have a rough overview of what that cargo was. So what exactly were the items on the Fame and how did they look like? I am a digital illustrator, and I've been commissioned to recreate Sir Stamford Raffles' lost cargo on board the Fame, the ship that famously burnt down in 1824. Among the items lost was Raffles' extensive natural history collection, and that's what I'm going to recreate first.
So John, I wanted to know if you could tell me more about the natural history collection that was on the Fame.
It turns out that Raffles was one of the pioneering naturalists in this part of the region, and he had spent years sending collectors out all over Southeast Asia. So Raffles had thousands and thousands of examples of dead birds and mammals packed in crates all over the ship. And they would have been very lightweight, but also very flammable.
So what was the largest animal he brought on board the ship?
Well, the largest probably would have been the tigers or tapirs. He actually had live animals on the ship. And these were all tamed in his home before they took them on the ship. A lot of them probably roamed freely.
That's really cool.
And those that they couldn't take home, they had illustrated. And here's 2 examples. These are done by local Chinese artists. And I mean, they're really beautiful.
They are, definitely.
We know that Raffles had between 2,000 and 3,000 drawings like this on the Fame. That's everyone's favorite.
That's a durian.
Durian.
You couldn't bring this on board.
It was probably against the rules.
John tells me that Raffles' collection of drawings and specimens was some of the earliest records of the flora and fauna of the region. Some of which no longer exist today, like these Argus pheasants, which are locally extinct in Singapore.
And this is exactly the kind of thing that Raffles had with him on the Fame. Preserved birds like this, with labels on each one. There must have been hundreds, maybe thousands of specimens from Singapore.
That's a lot.
Which makes the loss of the collection all that more tragic, because these dead animals, to us, they are like time capsules. They preserve what used to live here long ago. and that's now gone.
It's lost.
What would have been an incredible snapshot of Singapore's original biodiversity was lost forever. Yeah.
So why was Raffles bringing all of these things back to England?
Well, Raffles, he was passionate about nature and the natural world. This was not a sham, and in my opinion, has nothing to do with colonialism.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting to see how his reputation has changed over the last 150 years or so. He's gone from founding figure to sort of whipping boy. I mean, it's now the fashionable thing to bash Raffles as much as possible. Why did people say what they said about Raffles at a particular time in history? Because we are no different from the people in the past. They had their reasons for preferring one version of history over another, and so do we.
I was really surprised to find out that the collection was that vast. I can see how it would have been a great loss to Raffles and to Singapore. It's really just sad.
Raffles's natural history collection may be gone forever, but as an artist, I can still restore a little bit of the history that was lost.
After meeting John today, I wanted to add the animals and all the other specimens that he talked about into the scene. I'm working on the tiger. It may not look like much right now, but it'll get there. After the tiger, I'll be working on the tapir. And then I'll move on to the other specimens that were kept in the hard cases, such as the taxidermized animals.
With Raffles's natural history collection underway, I can now move on to the next part of his cargo, his anthropological collection. And I found a book that might help, written by Raffles himself.
I got some photocopied documents of the history of Java that I picked up at the library.
The book was published in 1817, based on Raffles's research of Java during his tenure as Lieutenant Governor there.
And what I thought was really interesting about this book is that he had with it a lot of illustrations of cultural objects from Java.
It seems Raffles had collected these objects. So, could he have had similar items with him when he was on the Fame? I head to the museum to find out.
So Stephen, I was wondering if you could tell me what Raffles brought with him onto the Fame.
Sure. The Fame is a little bit difficult because, as you know, it sank.
Yeah.
But if we look at what he collected in Java, we can draw a certain amount of conclusions as to what may have been on the Fame.
Stephen explains that after his term in Java ended in 1816, Raffles was transferred to Bencoolen, Sumatra, where he stayed for 6 years before leaving on the Fame. And it is likely Raffles would have collected in Sumatra items similar to the ones he did in Java.
So, for example, he was quite interested in performing arts. That's one thing that he studied quite extensively in Java. So, masks, the wayang shadow puppets, the gamelan. He's also very interested in weapons, so you can see the case behind me. These are similar types of weapons to what he may or probably would have collected in Sumatra as well.
I see.
After that, it becomes a little bit difficult to know exactly what he was collecting.
But Stephen speculates that the collection on the Fame might have also included tribal material, like these from the Batak, a highland tribe in Sumatra.
We know that Raffles was interested in these groups because he wrote correspondences about them.
So is there a reason to why Raffles was collecting these anthropological and cultural items?
He definitely had some clear motivations behind why he was collecting the items that he did. He wanted to write a history of Sumatra, similar to his history of Java. He had this ambition that Sumatra would become another British colony. And if you write somebody's history, you essentially control it. So naturally, the sinking of the Fame scuppered his plans of being able to write these histories.
In meeting with Stephen, I found out a lot of interesting behind-the-scenes kind of facts about Raffles and his collection and how he perpetuated his version of the truth. I now see Raffles not only as what we grew up with as a nation builder, but also someone who was trying to advance himself in his career. I'm working on a couple of the objects I saw at the museum today. It's like the Chris or the tiny sculptures I saw. Right now, I'm actually creating the display cases that contain these objects because most of these objects are small objects, and I would like to have them displayed throughout the ship.
With most of the cargo complete, I now need to build a ship to put it all in. The problem is, I only have one picture of the Fame in flames. So, how did this ship actually look like? I'm recreating the Fame, the ship that caught fire in 1824, with all of Sir Stamford Raffles' belongings and his priceless research collections. I've reconstructed the cargo, and now I need to build the ship. So, how did the Fame look like?
So Farish, can you tell me more about the Fame and what it looked like and what kind of ship it was? Yeah.
So it was probably a smallish commercial vessel, very typical of the sort of ships that were used during the time of the East India Company. So we're probably imagining a ship that looks something similar to this.
These ships, Farish tells me, were called the East Indiamen. They could be huge vessels weighing over 1,000 tons. But the Fame was a modest one at only 430 tons with a crew of about 40 men.
Can you tell me what the ship looked like on the inside?
We have these wonderful depictions of life below deck. We see the ship rocking, and we see, sailors brawling. The decks were basically multi-purpose areas where all sorts of things can happen.
Okay.
And so they put up partitions to create spaces. A space for cargo, a space for animals, a space for passengers, or what have you.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that it's kind of similar to like a modular home.
Yes.
So where would Raffles' cargo have been kept?
Okay, you would see that the cargo would be placed always at the lowest deck because the cargo is heavy. That also explains why when the Fame was about to sink, it was hard to rescue the items because they were already, all at the bottom, they're already packed.
Yeah.
The sad thing about what happened to the Fame is that now all these objects are gone forever.
Yeah.
And I think many of these objects are also irreplaceable.
And Farish shows me the final part of Raffles' lost items I never knew were on the ship. Close to 300 volumes of centuries-old Malay manuscripts like these, folk narratives, royal genealogies, precious records of the histories and cultures of the archipelago. Most of them the only copies in existence. All gone forever.
I think this is one of the worst tragedies that befell Southeast Asia. And for what? So that this man could represent himself as a kind of, scholar, which he wasn't. Fundamentally, the man was an empire builder.
Right.
I do not have a high opinion of the man at all. Today, when historians try to reconstruct or reimagine the history of Southeast Asia prior to the colonial encounter, we are at a loss because so much of the material that is crucial to our own research has now been lost forever.
Farish's opinion on Raffles was, I guess, a really honest one. And at the end of the day, all of these historians have said the same thing, where it is still a great loss that what Raffles collected just went up in smoke. Because this was part of our cultural history that is now kind of just left in gaps because it is something that cannot be replaced.
Since meeting Farish, I've now been able to create what I hope to be a historically accurate version of the Fame.
So all that's left is just to add a little bit of motion to the scene. And I hope to bring in a couple of different things, like people just walking around the ship, or animals just, being animals. And I hope that people will look at the scene and just relate to the little things that they see.
And at the same time, appreciate a piece of lost history I've tried to reclaim in my own way.
So over here I have with me the final piece, and I'm really excited to show you what I have here. So using a free app called Artivive, you can see the 3 different decks. And you can actually even walk up to them and look at what's happening. Over here, you can even see the tiger and the tapir having fun. See, that's them running over here. We can go down another deck and actually see how modular the space is. Moving down another layer here, you can actually see the cargo hold and specimens Raffles had kept. So I tried to brief as much life as I could, and I just hope that viewers enjoy discovering these little stories. Prior to this, Raffles always was just a one-sided, flat character who just came here and set up shop. So learning about the Fame definitely did affect how I view history as a whole, and how it is something that's more than what meets the eye. So I hope that people who come up to this artwork will also take with them this motivation to learn more about their own country's histories, because, that is your own identity. And I think there's nothing more important than figuring that out.